we're not getting that UV light. We're either blocking it with toxic sunscreen.
Should you be using sunscreen?
I don't wear sunscreen unless I am going to be out for a long period of time. I think it's almost close to like 80% has carcinogenic chemicals.
I don't think is discussed enough at all is how the sun impacts gut health.
So many people are dealing with gut issues these days. Sunlight exposure is what shaped our biology, and that UV light is so important for the gut. The gut is where most of the serotonin is developed, and the sun is also what helps to stimulate serotonin, dopamine, and just those feel-good hormones. Get up immediately. I open my front door. I have that natural fresh air, so it signals to your brain it's time to wake up. That morning time is so great for your body to start to wake up, and being outside if you can do so.
You got the door.
Hello.
This is off to a great start. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for being here.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you for joining the Gut Check podcast.
Of
We've been
course.
friends for a while, been meaning to do this interview for a few months now. I think just to kick it off would be great to just hear your background and how you started, what you're doing now, your book, everything, but just kind of who is Jenna-Leigh?
I started actually in corporate technology. So I was building different information systems for the government, working in a very high stress environment. And fast forward today, now I'm an integrative nutritionist and functional health coach. I have my lovely book, which I brought with me, Becoming Sunshine.
Awesome book.
Thank you. So did a lot of research on that just after I came from that high stress corporate environment and technology background. And now I'm just in this beautiful space where I can bring different health practitioners together, do community activation events, and work with different health and wellness brands, and really just help people to become healthier and create that greater awareness of what we can do every single day to optimize our health, optimize our happiness, and then optimize our potential to reach our purpose in life.
But what are some of the things, just as we kick it off, that are highlights to you, or that things that you think are kind of the most important aspects of the book and the work that you've done so far?
Right. Well, what sparked me writing this book was working in DC for about 3.5 years, and I was really plagued by why I felt so fatigued. I came from a multi-sport athlete background. I was training 6 hours every single day, and then bam, woke up in DC and wasn't in the sun every single day, was working long hours, and I realized I was vitamin D deficient. So that started a catalyst of creating this book and almost doing an internal awareness check of what can I do to get back to myself, that vibrant, most authentic self.
Unfortunately, kind of the corporate culture and just culture of, this grind, work harder.
Yeah.
And I learned that I had vitamin D deficiency, and I actually, am in California and spend quite a lot of time outside.
Yeah.
My mom has vitamin D deficiency. For those of you that don't know, vitamin D is a hormone, so incredibly important.
The sun shapes every single biological function.
Yeah.
Most people don't know that. It fine-tunes our circadian rhythm. It affects our nutrition absorption. It promotes better sleep. It regulates hormone balance. It literally touches on every single thing that we need to essentially survive and thrive in everyday life. And what's most important, and I feel like more and more information is coming out to honestly support both of our causes, is when we're healing the gut. So many people are dealing with gut issues these days. The best place to start is the sun. And most people don't really realize what the effect really is with the sun. And when you're outside, you're absorbing this key vitamin, which we like to call the sunshine vitamin, vitamin D, but that's through UV light. And we find a lot of times we're not getting that UV light. We're either blocking it with toxic sunscreen, we're going out when there's not an option to absorb it.
Yep.
And that UV light is so important for the gut. It helps to increase the lining. So many people are dealing with leaky gut. It also helps to reduce toxin absorption. It helps reduce inflammation in the gut. So think about when we're dealing with that leaky gut, we're dealing with IBS and other stresses like that. And then also just calming the body and the digestive system so we're not hypersensitive at night, so promoting better sleep. And also, the gut is where most of the serotonin is developed, is produced. And the sun is also what helps to stimulate serotonin, dopamine, and just those feel-good hormones when you're outside.
But I certainly was enlightened when I was educated around this, is the circadian rhythm.
Yes.
So let's just dive into that for a few minutes and really talk about what it is, why it's so important, kind of how modern life has disrupted our circadian rhythms, and then what can everyone do about it?
The first thing that actually sparked our circadian rhythm and gave us a sense of time and space was the sun. So the sun is what signaled to our bodies to rise, to wake up, and when to go to sleep. So that's how we knew when there was a new day and when the day ended. And what happens when light hits your eyes? That it actually signals to the suprachiasmatic nucleus in the back of your eyes that, hey, it's time to wake up and it's time to produce all these different biological functions. So it signals for us to start being cognitively aware. It helps us to say, hey, it's time to get those digestive juices flowing.
Yep.
And it also helps to keep us on a sense of rhythm for our sleep. So what we're doing in our modern time is oftentimes we're not outside. So we don't get that first daylight in our eyes, and we don't get that signal of when the day is ending because we're stimulating with blue light. We have an inconsistent schedule. A lot of us are suffering from social jet lag, so we're not waking up and going to sleep at the same times.
Yeah.
And that's throwing off our sense of rhythm. So the biggest thing, and actually one of my favorite books is called Circadian Code. And when we are rhythmic beings, so we like a little bit of consistency. Our bodies like to know, okay, we generally eat at the same time and we go to sleep at the same time. So it can plan to, have proper digestion. It can have time to make sense of our day, create those memories, those connections between our neurons. And so when we throw this off, we're constantly living in our body in a state of fight and flight. So that signals that stress of our body. There's no predictability in our routine.
As far as just practical kind of next steps, I know for me, one of the most, helpful things that I've tried to do, and I'm not perfect at this by any means, but is, not using your cell phone around bedtime and when you wake up. What are some of the other things that if someone's listening, you could do to just help with the health of your circadian rhythm? And I think for a lot of us, it's just really an encouragement to get back on track.
I'm sure everyone is very familiar with red light therapy now. We have the masks and all the gadgets, and something that we've talked about is we don't believe it's going to be a fad, because the reason why red light is so important, especially for our health and our mood, is that red light actually mimics that 30 minutes after sunrise and 30 minutes before sunset. And that red light, it's that specific spectrum of light that actually helps to reset your circadian rhythm. So it's super healthy. It helps to boost our mood. It helps to signal to our body that, hey, this is kind of this calming light. It's waking the body up. And so if we can do some red light therapy in the morning when we wake up and add that part of like our habit stacking. So if you're reading your book in the morning or having your coffee, just have your red light panel with as much skin absorption as possible. That is probably my favorite thing, especially when I'm suffering from seasonal depression disorder or seasonal affective disorder, excuse me. And then just getting outside and being as connected with nature as possible, because the plants, the animals, everything runs on that circadian rhythm. Every living thing relies on the sun to survive and thrive. So the more time that you expose your body to the natural environment, the better you can be. And then if we have any avid campers out there.
Campers, now you're speaking to my husband.
Yes, so I love to camp. I definitely got way more into it when I moved to California. But there was actually this study going on actually out in Colorado a few years ago. And I call it in my book intermittent camping, but that allows you to reset your circadian rhythm. So there's this very cool study where they sent these two groups out just for camp. Pitch your tent, no cell phones, nothing, no artificial light, no lanterns, nothing like that. And because you're so in tune with nature's light, people were able to have such a deep sense of rest and reset after just these 2 days of camping
Wow.
that they came back so much more refreshed, so much more alert, reduced brain fog, more energy, more sense of like connected to their emotional feelings. So being more in tune with your body.
Have you, seen any of the studies or any of the kind of recommendations to first see the natural sunlight as the first light that you're looking at?
Yeah, what I love to do is get up immediately. I open my front door. I have that natural fresh air come onto my body, and just yeah, if it's not a sunny day, that's fine. But still,
Yeah.
getting that natural light is the best thing that you can do. So it signals to your brain it's time to wake up. It's slow. It's not that bright blue light.
Yeah.
Blue light is so stimulating and so waking for the brain. Some people have equated it to drinking coffee.
Yeah.
So it wakes you up. Getting into a sense of routine, like I said, your body likes a little bit of routine and rhythm. So having a slower morning and waking up. And then if you are someone who loves to exercise, that morning time is so great for your body to start to wake up, and being outside if you can do so.
Yeah.
So getting a sense of like movement, hydration. I always drink about 2 full glasses of water when I wake up, like 8 to 16 ounces before I have any type of coffee or tea or anything like that. So hydrating the body, energizing the body with natural sunlight, adding a little bit of movement, even if it's stretching. And even if it is sunny, what I'll do is I'll still wake up, open the door, and then I'll still probably sit back down and have that 20, 30 minutes of my red light panel.
Yeah.
Because, there has been days when we haven't. So if I can stack it a little bit, that's always a good little tip that I add.
My husband now is wearing them like every day, all day, are the red light glasses. I don't know if you, from your research, if you've, subscribed to that or think that it's helpful, but the red light glasses are another one. I don't know what you think about those, and if that's something that when it comes to circadian rhythm you would recommend.
Well, what came to mind first when you were saying there's so many things that we can add into our lives, I think what we need to do is actually subtract a lot from our life.
It's a good point.
So instead of just adding more supplements and adding more biohacking mechanisms, go back to the really simple roots of life. And that's a big thing that you and I connected. I mean, we're so well researched now in the world of biohacking and optimizing our nutrients and our health. But going back to like what's simple, like what actually helped build our so dynamic, so complex, human system are actually the most simple things, like sunlight and water and, moving the body and having those connected conversations and being emotionally supported by others. Those little things are most important to have a healthy body, mind, and soul.
I do think that so much research is going to come out, and it's going to come in different forms. We're going to learn a lot about stress and how cortisol, this kind of ever-present stressor that's in everything, is impacting us. And that's going to, there's going to be a lot of research about that, but it's going to come out in different areas. It's going to come out in, metabolism, obesity, hormone issues, infertility. It's all going to kind of come out, and it's going to be this sort of, which it already is, this kind of perfect storm. So it's not, I don't think, one thing or another, but there is certainly something to be said about, being aware of it and at least acknowledging that, what we do today is going to impact us the next few decades.
So I think just that initial health awareness is the most important step for allowing people to then take action.
Yeah.
And whatever suits their lifestyle and what they want to do, because not all of us are perfect. None of us are.
Yeah.
And our lives can't be completely consistent. It can't be perfect, and we can't always do everything right. So I think giving ourselves that grace and not being overwhelmed and overstimulated about just thinking about all the things that we have to do to be healthy, and just slowing down and saying, hey, is there one thing that I can subtract from my life that is maybe causing me some stress, and then maybe adding something in that's more natural or that helps to calm me. I think that is a great first step.
So let's talk kind of through some of the other chapters in the book. But I think one other thing that's so important to touch on is the connection that the sun has with the food that we eat and
Yeah.
with nutrition. And this kind of gets into eating locally and seasonally. But just give us kind of the high level of how the sun is connected to the food and what are some of the things that you learned.
What I wanted to do was really dive into where our food comes from and get as connected as possible. So I ended up spending some time. I took a sabbatical from my work and I went to work on a farm in Hawaii. And I ended up rising with the sun, sunrise carrot harvest, and I was in the dirt, in the soil every single day, uprooting these carrots, uprooting these different fruits and vegetables, and being as connected to our food to have a deeper appreciation of what it actually takes to get something to grow from a seed to our table. And I think that appreciation of seeing every little thing at play. And this farm was a biodiversity farm.
Cool.
So it was using all natural, fertilizer. The animals were connected. There was nothing that was unnatural about the farm, and everything was working together. So to see that from inception to our table was quite brilliant and quite awe-inspiring, because I think when you're connected to your food and you're eating this full rainbow of food that is where you're sleeping and eating, is there's just something that happens in the body. And I think we're still doing a lot of research about, what goes on. But I think that just general appreciation of seeing the whole process helps me to become healthier. And when we're more connected to our food and closer to where it came from, I think we're overall happier, mood wise and community wise. But in terms of the sun and how it supports our food, I think eating as locally as possible is the biggest step that I've taken. Eating for my brain has been a consistent theme in my life. So what is supportive of my cognitive function? I'm a big lover of blueberries, walnuts, and salmon. I feel like that's something that I can't go a week without. Just the anti-inflammatory properties, the support of just my brain being more clear, high cognitive function, and then having food that is not processed. I mean, it's so hard. I think I read a stat recently that 50% of Americans' diets is from processed food. I mean, that's wild. And most of that food isn't giving you any nutritional value, nothing at all. So I think eating food that is whole, eating food that is as colorful as possible, because every single color that you see in nature is indicative of key vitamins that the body needs. And food that also takes the shape of your organs. So there's a reason why beets are blood red and purple. It's signaled to you that that's going to help with your blood clarification. And there's a reason why a walnut looks like a brain. So nature is it's so supportive, and I feel like it helps to give humans the right clues about where to go and what to eat if we take that time to actually listen.
Yeah, I think that the nutrition aspect of this is difficult because it does require that you treat food, and this isn't to be weird, but you have to treat food properly. You have to treat it with respect, but also understanding that this is your life force. This is where all of your energy comes from. This is a life force. Nutrition is not something that should be put into a bag or put into a microwave and just how quickly can we make it happen. It should be something that is truly respected and truly appreciated, that, hey, it might take you an hour extra per day, but that's worth it when you are cooking something, when you are preparing something, because it impacts your entire body. It impacts, frankly, now we know whether you're going to get cancer or Alzheimer's, dementia, all of these things is impacting. And so it's been it's going to be hard to kind of unwind some of the patterns of modern life. But I think that the nutrition aspect of how the sun is connected to our bodies and eating seasonally and all of that in that framework is something we really need to focus on.
Chapter 4 is all about nutrition and fine-tuning your food style, which is a term I coined because often you say, okay, what's your diet like? Are you on the DASH diet, Mediterranean diet? What are you doing? And one of my favorite quotes was actually by Mark Hyman. And he
Yeah.
said, "You can't exercise your way out of a bad diet." And
Yep.
it's so true. You can't
Yep.
work off that donut that you just ate. That donut is now part of you.
Yeah.
And so when you're eating for a sunshine disposition, which is what I call chapter 4, you really have to, first of all, also understand what foods suit your body and your brain and your mood. And as an integrative health coach, I found that not all foods support everyone the same way, you know?
Right.
So grains are generally not good for anyone, I found. They slow down the whole system. But, you know, sometimes you operate better on a ketogenic diet. Sometimes you not. Sometimes you don't, you know? And then also your genetics are going to influence if you have an anti-inflammatory response to certain foods versus not. So I think self-experimenting with how your body feels after certain foods is critical. So that's the first thing that I look into when I'm meeting with one of my patients is, you know, not just prescribing a diet and saying this is a one size fits all approach. Health is not like that. Of course, there's wonderful things that you can do, like eating seasonally, having a rainbow filled plate, but you have to adjust for everyone's different bio individuality.
And the location of where they're living too, because
100%.
these conversations are so different if you're living in New York City versus, you know, Los Angeles or San Diego versus Montana. Did you do any research into kind of hormone health? I mean, vitamin D, of course, is a hormone.
Yes.
Is there anything specific that you would say on women's health or hormone health? I mean, how does our cycle play into this?
Yeah, so one of the chapters that I wrote about was kind of dissecting the two different types of rhythms that we have at play. So for women, we have two that we have to be aware of. It's circadian rhythm and then our infradian rhythm, which is that 28-day cycle that you spoke about. So, and sometimes it's so detrimental to our body if we're doing endurance sports during a time, especially before our period when our body needs a lot more rest. It needs more functional movements like stretching, light strength work, maybe some Pilates and yoga.
Mm-hmm.
And when we push our bodies too much, it causes such detrimental effects in terms of recovery. So, women in general need a lot more sleep and a lot more recovery time than men. And that's no reason of like, oh, we're less or we need more time. It's just how our bodies are designed. So, I think honoring those different cycles and doing movements and eating foods that are supportive of those different reproductive times of our body is a huge step forward.
It's the most important sign that we have of health as women is our period, right? And having a healthy cycle. And then, of course, respecting the different phases of it.
Right. I mean, that just touches on how we evolved as human beings too.
Yeah.
You know, our ancestors, when we're in fight or flight, that signals to our body, especially our womb, hey, our body is not safe. It's inhospitable for a baby at this time.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop your period because I don't want you to be, you know, at risk or vulnerable.
Yep.
But yeah, so the cycle is really important just to keep the body healthy. So it weakens your bones when you don't have your cycle. It generally like shifts your mood too.
Yeah.
I found myself not being as like happy and jovial. I found I was energy depleted even though I was still optimizing my nutrition and training every single day. So when you're out of that rhythm and you're putting your body in too much of a stress response, it can completely shift your cycles. And it will also affect your circadian rhythm. I found myself also suffering from insomnia because I wasn't having that enough rest time. I was constantly stressed. So I think the beautiful thing that I've learned too upon writing this and just my own personal experiences is that our lives are so inextricably linked.
Right.
The sun is related to our sleep, our circadian rhythm is related to our nutrition, our mood is related to how we're eating and protecting our brains, how we're moving our bodies. So if one thing is off, you'll notice that over time everything starts to fall into place. It's like the ripple effect, the domino effect, whatever you want to call it. And I think that's the beautiful thing of how beautifully the sun has orchestrated our bodies to be such beautifully fine-tuned things, but we can't take that for granted. We have to constantly check in with ourselves. We have to support our health. and we have to support each other in terms of just learning and developing that great understanding.
We're heading into summer. We live in Southern California.
Yes.
You know, the marketing pump has been sunscreen, sunscreen, sunscreen. And
Yes.
now, obviously, there's so much coming out about how toxic most sunscreens are.
Yeah.
So what's your recommendation on sunscreen? Let's kind of break this myth a little bit, give everyone some really good insight into, should you be using sunscreen? Should you not? If not, why? If yes, what sunscreens?
Yes.
How do we think about that?
Normally, I don't wear sunscreen unless I am going to be out for a long period of time when the UV is strong and, like you said, I can't protect myself. I would rather wear a hat, long clothes to protect myself if I'm going to be outside for a long time, because, like you said, so much of our sunscreen, a majority of it, I think it's almost close to like 80%, has carcinogenic chemicals, things that are toxic, things that will, depending...
We're talking the Coppertone, the Neutrogena, pretty much all like the big brands. You have to be really careful, these brands.
Most sunscreens, even if it looks like a natural branding, look at the back. If you can't pronounce the name, if it has droxy something in it, it's harmful. It's a chemical. So when I do use sunscreen, actually one of my favorites, it's a local made sunscreen here in San Diego by this amazing company and couple, actually, is Sun Mud.
Okay.
And so they only use healthy minerals in their sunscreen.
And it also prevents us from absorbing some of the UV that we need to absorb. Is that right?
100%. All sunscreen is UV blocking.
Yeah.
So
that's the whole point of being outside and being in the sun, is to absorb the UV.
Exactly.
Obviously, within a healthy range, you can't be out there for 8 hours baking in the sun.
What I recommend is, even if it's not a strong UV, especially in the morning sun, that's so important just to get out. And especially if you're fair skinned, you need less time in the sun to absorb your allotted amount of UV to help jumpstart all those biological functions. If you do have a higher melanin count, like I do get, darker in the sun, I need to be out in the sun a little bit longer to get what my body needs in terms of UV. And like we said, that UV light, when it hits your skin, that's why you want to have as much skin exposure as possible. It's more absorption. As we know, the skin is our largest organ. And that UV creates vitamin D. And vitamin D, as we know, is not only a vitamin, it is also a hormone. So it helps to balance so many things in the body. It helps to protect our bones. It helps for immune regulation, cognitive function, everything like that. And a lot of times people say, oh, just, drink some milk or, eat all these different foods that have vitamin D, but it's not the purest form. The purest form is what we get from the sun.
Why do you think, when you look at this in the research, why does the sun get a bad rap? And then also, what do you think is going on with pushing products on us to quote unquote solve a problem that the problem doesn't necessarily exist, or it might cause more problems?
My favorite chapter, if I do have a favorite chapter in my book, is chapter 2. If we go back to early days, the Egyptians who worshiped the sun gave us that first appreciation. They looked at the sun because of its beautiful power as a god. And we call the sun god Apollo. And it's quite interesting from the tales of history and what have been passed down, because Apollo was known as the god of medicine and healing and the god of sun and light. And the fact that he was known as those two crucial things, and now we're realizing how healing the sun is incredible. And then we fast forward to the Industrial Revolution, which I found absolutely fascinating. They were seeing a lot of children in the city having this disease called rickets, and it's soft bone and skeletal deformity. So kind of like hunch, not being able to support themselves, kind of strange shapes. And the scientists and the doctors were curious, what is happening to these children? And one brilliant doctor, I think he was based in Germany, he was like, I was just out in the countryside. I was with all these children who were working in the farms, and none of them are experiencing the issues that all the children in the cities are. And fast forward, they weren't getting any sunlight.
Wow.
These children were being born and raised in these heavy, polluted, cloud-filled, smoke-filled skies, and they were not seeing the sun. And as we know, vitamin D is one of the biggest building blocks for supporting healthy bones.
Yeah.
And so this one doctor says, you know what? I'm going to move all the hospital beds of these children to this highest skyscraper, and we're going to have sun baths. And everyone thought he was wild.
This was during the Industrial Revolution.
Yep. So as where the children were not being, shaded by any buildings, and they were just getting full sunlight, and over a few days, weeks, they were cured of rickets. This is where I'll read a little excerpt from my book. In the 1930s, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and Latin America were predicted to be the most affected by skin cancer due to their geographical position and exposure to high levels of ultraviolet B radiation. So the World Health Organization and other global government organizations led campaigns to educate the world on these harmful effects of the sun and cautioning people to drastically reduce their time outside. So this vitamin D deficiency again started to emerge just after we learned the importance of it. And in modern day, we're realizing that this is now a disease, to be vitamin D deficiency. We're also now seeing a rise in osteoporosis, specifically older women whose bones have been, porous and frail. So it was a big campaign to sell sunscreen, to kind of deter people from being out in the sun, because the reason why this was happening, of course, you can't spend all day in the sun close to the equator. I mean, New Zealand, South Africa, Latin America, Australia, it's, very high sunny day counts for the year. So we just started to blame the sun as a source of skin cancer, but in reality, it was our lack of awareness of how to enjoy the sun in moderation. And that's like anything in our day to day. We're overindulging, we are over consuming, over traveling, just overexerting ourselves. And so that was a key lesson.
Have you seen anything? I don't know a ton about this, but I was just starting to see something the other day about how sunglasses could be bad because your eyes know what to do and adjust to the light. And when you're wearing sunglasses, it kind of throws them off. Yeah. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Definitely. So when I said, first recommendation is to go out in the morning sunlight, and especially, maybe take a walk for that first 30 minutes in the morning.
Yeah.
If you wear sunglasses, you can't absorb any of the light into your eyes.
Yeah.
It blocks it. So when I said that little light hitting your suprachiasmatic nucleus in the back of your eye, that is what signals to say, hey, circadian rhythm, like it's a no day. It's time to turn on the biological functions. Your sunglasses block that. So there's no signal.
So one of the things that you were recently sharing that I loved, and I don't think is discussed enough at all, super in line with what we're doing at Daily Nori, is how the sun impacts gut health.
So I feel like we often begin with the conversation about gut health and about what we feed it. So what food we're putting into the body. But I think the more important question is what initiates the conditions for beneficial bacteria to actually thrive in the first place in your gut? And my answer is the sun. And most people don't realize that long before we had probiotics on the shelves, sunlight exposure is what shaped our biology.
Yep.
So this is the foundational environment that actually helped to create that resilient microbiome that we need, especially in this unnatural modern world that we're living in. So what we're finding is that UV light that we're talking about so often, it's actually more important than just supporting that vitamin D production. It also initiates quite a cascade of effects in our biology that directly shapes our gut health. So the first thing is reducing gut inflammation. We found the sun is so important for just having a calming nervous system. It also helps with the permeability of vitamin D and strengthening that gut lining to help us be more supportive of if we're suffering from leaky gut syndrome. It's also helpful for creating integrity in those inflammatory pathways. So those chronic diseases, that leaky gut, that IBS. And then another thing that I found really interesting too was, it's linked to those lower rates of IBS and IBD. It regulates your immune response too. So UVB light actually helps to stimulate and shape T cell function. And T cell shape, or T cell function is important for preventing immune overactivation, especially in the gut. So that creates a more balanced environment, that strengthened microbiome. And then the big thing too that we've talked about is that it helps to align our circadian rhythm. So light is that master regulator of our internal clock. It not only regulates our mood, but it regulates our digestion. It regulates our cell repair, our hormone release, so that vitamin D. And it also helps to reinforce our serotonin production and motility. Sunlight actually boosts that serotonin. I think 90% of it is created in the gut.
Yeah.
And that's not only important for our mood, but also making sure that our digestion is regular. So we're not having IBS, we're not suffering from constipation. So I think those are the things that we don't even realize that the sun is having a play in our biology.
Okay, rapid fire. What are 3 or 4 things that you would tell everyone to do from a day-to-day perspective to support their circadian rhythm and to make sure that they're getting enough sunshine in their life?
Yeah, so I think a big thing is our biology is built on sunshine. We need the sun to survive and thrive. So getting outside as much as you can every single day, no matter if you're living coastal by the beach, you have the power to design and control your life to optimize your health and happiness. So your whole life can change from one day to the next. So I think just making the decision that you want to be healthier, you want to be happier, you want to be more connected to yourself and those around you, to nature around you. So yeah, just giving that sense of like empowerment.
That's awesome. Thank you.
This has been so fun.